Welcome back. Today, we're diving into a brand new explainer on one of the absolute most awe-inspiring phenomena in our natural world, the vanishing sun. I mean, think about it. For a few fleeting moments, day literally turns into night. The temperature drops, and this massive black disk just hangs there in the sky. But how does this actually work? Well, beyond the quick, flat textbook definitions, we're going to uncover the precise, three-dimensional mechanics of how solar eclipses happen, and why they don't happen nearly as often as you might think. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so to truly appreciate the science here, we kind of have to step back and look at the sheer terror eclipses used to cause. Back in 1200 BC, Chinese scribes documented it pretty simply. The sun has been eaten. Across all sorts of ancient civilizations, a sudden eclipse meant one thing, and one thing only: monsters. In the Rig Veda, it was the demons Rahu and Ketu gobbling up the sun. In China, it was a celestial dragon, and for some Native American tribes, it was literally a giant black squirrel. I mean, without the science to explain the sudden darkness, human beings just filled that void with mythology and fear, banging pots and shooting arrows into the sky to scare the monsters away.
All right, let's dive into this evolution of understanding, because our relationship with eclipses has shifted dramatically over time. Way back in 3000 BC, we see the very first visual representations carved into stones in Ireland. By 1200 BC, you've got the written panic of the Chinese scribes. But then fast forward to 499 AD. A 23-year-old Indian mathematician named Aryabhata set up an observatory in a sun temple in Bihar and mathematically figured out that, hey, demons aren't eating the sun, it's actually just the mechanical interplay of shadows being cast by the moon and the earth. Just incredible stuff for over 1500 years ago.
Section 1. The Celestial Dance, Gravity and Momentum. To understand exactly what Aryabhata figured out all those years ago, we have to look at the foundational mechanics of our solar system.
And it all starts right here, with an absolutely staggering statistic. The sun, it holds 99.8% of the entire mass of our solar system. The Earth, the Moon, Jupiter, Saturn, literally everything else combined makes up just a tiny sliver of 0.2%. And because mass equals gravity, the sun exerts an overwhelmingly massive gravitational pull, just tugging constantly on all the planets.
Which, brings up a pretty logical question. If the sun is pulling on us with that much unimaginable force, why don't we just get yanked right in? Why don't we crash into the sun and burn up?
Well, the answer is sideways momentum. And the magic number here is 67,000 miles per hour. That's roughly 30 kilometers every single second. The Earth isn't just sitting there, it's hurtling sideways at this incredible speed. And it's this exact sideways momentum that perfectly balances out the sun's inward gravitational pull. Without that specific speed, we would absolutely spiral right into the sun. But instead, we are locked in this continuous, beautiful, stable orbit. So the Earth orbits the sun, and simultaneously, the moon is orbiting the Earth. And because of all this constant motion, occasionally these three celestial bodies find themselves perfectly aligned. When the moon passes exactly in a straight line between the sun and the Earth, well, the moon casts its shadow down onto our planet. So from our perspective on the ground looking up, the sun just gets completely hidden behind the moon. And that right there is the basic requirement for a solar eclipse. Section 2. The missing dimension. 2D diagrams versus 3D reality. Now, here is where we run into a major roadblock with how most of us were taught about the solar system. If you think back to standard two-dimensional school diagrams, they actually create a massive point of confusion. Think about it. If the moon circles the Earth every single month, and a solar eclipse happens when the moon gets between the Earth and the sun, shouldn't we have a solar eclipse literally every single month? Well, the answer is no, because the universe is not a flat piece of paper. The 3D reality is that these orbits are happening on completely different tilted planes. And this brilliantly illustrates the concept using items you can probably find right in your kitchen. Imagine a large orange as the sun, a bulb of garlic for the Earth, and a small cherry tomato as the moon. The garlic orbits the orange on a flat, horizontal table. But the tomato isn't just rolling flat on that table around the garlic. No, its orbit is tilted. It dips below the table and then rises up above it. And because of this tilt, the tomato's path only intersects the garlic's flat plane at exactly 2 points. So, what happens most months? Well, the moon does pass between the Earth and the sun, sure, but because of that tilt, it's just a little too high or a little too low. Its shadow misses the Earth entirely and just projects harmlessly out into empty space. From Earth, we just look up and see a completely dark sky, what's known in Hindi as Amavasya, or a no moon night. A solar eclipse only happens when the moon hits one of those two specific intersection points at the exact same time it aligns with the sun.
It is basically a rare cosmic bullseye. Let's move to Section 3, elliptical orbits, total versus annular eclipses. Because even when the celestial alignment is totally perfect, not every solar eclipse looks the same to us on the ground.
It really all comes down to the shape of the moon's path. While we usually picture orbits in our heads as these perfect geometric circles, the moon's orbit is actually an ellipse. That means the Earth is not at the exact center of the moon's orbital path. And because of that, the distance between the Earth and the moon is constantly fluctuating. Sometimes the moon is significantly closer to us, and sometimes it's much further away.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how that fluctuating distance drastically changes the visual effect in our sky. When an eclipse occurs and the moon happens to be at its closest point to Earth, it appears large enough to block the sun completely. That's a total solar eclipse. But when the moon is farther away, it appears slightly smaller in the sky, leaving this brilliant, blazing outer edge of the sun totally visible. That is an annular solar eclipse, famous for that breathtaking ring of fire effect. Section 4. Science over superstition, safe eclipse viewing. Now that we've mapped out the magnificent clockwork precision of these celestial bodies, we really need to bring this explainer back down to Earth, because ancient superstitions, they are remarkably stubborn.
Even today, literally in the age of space exploration, you will find modern myths claiming you shouldn't eat during an eclipse because your food goes stale instantly, or that pregnant women must stay indoors to avoid special radiation. Let's just apply some basic logic here. The sun is not a conscious being that gets offended and starts emitting a new, poisonous ray of light just because the moon happens to briefly block it from our specific point of view. It's just a shadow, folks. The sun is behaving exactly the same way it does every other second of the year.
However, there is one very real, scientifically proven danger during a solar eclipse, and it has absolutely nothing to do with astrology. It's called solar retinopathy. Remember using a magnifying glass as a kid to burn a hole in a dry leaf? Well, the lens in your eye does the exact same thing. If you stare directly at the sun, your eye's lens converges those intense ultraviolet rays directly onto your retina and physically burns the tissue. Now, this is true every day, but during an eclipse, the sudden darkness makes your pupils dilate, and it actually overrides your natural reflex to look away. That's what makes it incredibly dangerous to look at with the naked eye.
So, the absolute crucial point here is, you must protect your eyes. And here is exactly how the experts say you can do it safely. First, use specialized eclipse glasses and make sure they meet international safety standards. Second, if you're using a telescope, ensure it has a dedicated solar filter attached to the front of it. Third, if you happen to have access to them, welding glasses with a shade rating of 12 or higher are safe. And finally, honestly my personal favorite, nature's projector. Just stand under a leafy tree. The tiny gaps between the leaves act as little pinhole cameras, and they project hundreds of miniature crescent-shaped eclipses onto the ground right at your feet. It's super cool. So, we've journeyed from ancient terror and mythical dragons all the way to the precise 3D mechanics of gravity, tilted planes, and elliptical orbits. An eclipse isn't a monster eating the sun. It's a rare, beautiful display of our solar system's incredible celestial machinery. So, I'll leave you with this question for the next time the sky goes dark. Will you choose logic and wonder over fear when the cosmos perfectly aligns next? Thank you so much for watching this explainer.